Hi guys, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. My name's Kim Wallis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Higher Ranking. Just to give you a little bit of background, so you actually have some faith in what I'm telling you today. I've been around in search engine marketing for 18 years. I had my 50th birthday last year, and I think the thing that points to that the most is my first email address was kimwallis@hotmail.com. There's no numbers, no dots. So that was very early on. I've seen a lot happen in that time. I left IBM 5 years ago to set up Higher Ranking because, one, I wanted to be a father. I didn't want to work till 7:30 at night. I've got 6 and 9-year-old little boys, and I wanted to be present in their life. I was flying to New Zealand once a week, coming home at 7:30 at night. It was an awesome experience, but that was a priority for me. And the other motivation was that I saw things in the industry I didn't really like. I saw the commoditization of products, and I really wanted more control around what I delivered and how I delivered it. And I wanted to deliver with authenticity, integrity, and generosity. And a way of pointing at that generosity is, there's been a number of things that have happened recently. Like yesterday, for instance, a lot of our clients' sites are getting hacked more and more. WordPress sites are getting attacked, and the aggressiveness of those attacks is very high. And a client yesterday had a successful attack on their site, and their IT support, who was actually hosting them, and also both at a server level and a hosting level, were like, we don't know who's hosting, and we don't know where your server's placed. To the client, and they're asking me, will you guys pick up this activity? And we were like, yeah, we'll definitely help. So 3 of my team got on the call. We were there probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, working between GoDaddy, the IT firm, and my team. And we identified actually the hosting was at that IT support company, and also the server was at the IT support company, and they changed their tune quite quickly. And we were able to get an effective result before lunchtime yesterday. So they're only down for about 4 hours and get them live again. If we hadn't been involved and we hadn't given that time, we didn't charge them for that, then they may have been down for a lot longer. We believe in jumping in the boat with our clients. And today's session is really about giving you some tools to be able to get some quick wins to appear on the front page of Google, especially around Google My Business and local search. It is limited, but it's also highly relevant to your audience. And just some maintenance, like Darren said, please turn off your mics and record all your questions in the chat box. After each segment, I went through this with my wife last night, and it became evident to me that a lot of what I was saying was going over her head. And when I actually broke it down and gave her time to ask me questions, there was a higher level of comprehension, and she was able to absorb more of what we were talking to. So instead of asking question time right at the end when you've all glazed over, I'm actually going to ask it at the end of each segment that we're talking to today. And that way, I'm hoping those questions will give you more insight and clarity into what I've been talking to, so it doesn't go over your head. So what is SEO? Again, I didn't have this slide when I talked to my wife last night, but I thought I should include it because she didn't know the difference between paid ads and organic listings. And so paid ads are anything that you have to pay for on a search engine. And particularly with Google Ads at the top of the page is usually the top 3 or 4 listings that has a big black lettering next to it saying ad. And Google Ads are great because they're immediate and you're paying money for every click. And if nobody clicks on your ad, you never pay any money. The only problem is it's quite limited in that the cost per click gets higher all the time, and there's a lower trust factor with ads. Below that is organic listings, and organic listings can be labelled in a number of ways, or SEO, in that yes, you have your standard listing or schematic indexing, but you also have things like over time you would organically optimize or schematically index things like frequently asked questions on your site, so that you get these featured snippets appearing with these drop down boxes. And that's the aim, is that you don't just have one what we call shelf space on the front page of Google. You actually want 2 or 3 shelf spaces on the front page of Google. And also Google My Business is part of that shelf space. So the more shelf space you have, the more likely you are to push your competitors off the page, and the more likely you are to gain market share in doing that. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to go through Google My Business and what I see in the practical application of optimizing Google My Business that will give quick wins. We're going to talk to backlinking, We're going to talk to keyword grouping and mapping. That's getting quite deep and technical, but it's an essential part of search engine optimization and Google Search Console, so that if you are paying someone, or even if you put your own team or yourself is putting a lot of time and energy into search engine optimization, you really want to be able to measure that over time so you can see that there's a reward in that effort or that money or that time. So we're going to go into Google Search Console as well. Just to get you out of your shells a little bit and to get a little bit of feedback for you, we're going to go into Google My Business. But the first question, I've got a bit of a poll that I'd like you guys to get involved with. And it's going to pop up on the front screen right now for you to answer some basic questions. And the first poll, and the question for that poll is, do you have a Google My Business set up? So it's yes or no. I think we can wind it up now. Darren, can you talk to me about what results you're seeing on the page for that poll?
Great to see that everyone's very active, and there's 74% have Google My Business set up, and 26%, obviously for those mathematicians, don't.
So I think that's awesome. So it's obvious that people have got it set up, and today will provide a lot of value. And the 26% of people that don't, it'd be awesome to have a conversation with you in our own time around the reasons why that isn't set up. Now, the second poll is to open your phone or a different browser. So not on the device you're watching at the moment, but on your phone or an iPad or another browser. Open it up and just type in your business name. But it's certainly getting your mindset in the right space by doing these polls right now. And quite often we're so busy in our lives we don't take the time to do it. But type in your business name to the browser on your device and click search. And what I'd like to know in the first question is, do you appear at the top of page 1 organically? Don't feel bad if you don't, because higher ranking is part of the public domain. And so there's a lot of people that want to rank for higher ranking. So in the first year that I was out of IBM and setting up my business, I had to work hard to get higher ranking at the top of page 1. And Google My Business can be a fairly quick way to achieve that, because on a desktop device, Google My Business is going to show your business name, and it's going to be dominant on the page in the top right-hand corner and really occupy that space. On a mobile device, it also sits above any other listings for your business name as well. So now, even if you're in a B2B sales cycle or a more complicated sales cycle or a tendering process, it's important when people go searching for your brand, because at some point during the conversations becoming aware of you, they're going to search for your brand. The other thing is Google My Business will have reputation on there or review responses, and people trust those reviews. So again, it's going to be an easy way for people to support the trust in your brand. Now, I think everybody's answered that question, so we might move to the second question in that poll, which is your Google My Business on the top of page 1 above your organic listing? So is it dominant, whether it's a desktop or a tablet or a mobile device, is it dominant above your organic listing on the top of page 1 on Google? And again, Google My Business, I see it as a really key factor and a quick win for businesses to support their brand integrity. And also to get, if you're actively asking for reviews on Google My Business, you're also doing what I see as one of the largest levers that you can pull, or activities that you can make to get Google My Business to rank dominantly above your competition in the local space. There's only 3 more people left. So what I might do is get Darren to close off that poll and just give me a readout on what the answers were for the 2 questions.
Yep, so question 1 is your Google My Business dominant or on your desktop and mobile? 89% said yes. And additionally, is your Google My Business in the top right-hand corner? 74% said yes.
Awesome, that's great. So the third one is really the telling point of Google My Business and how well you're ranking. So it's one thing appearing for your own business name. So again, I want you to start a new search and type in your core service or product. So if you're a plumber, it'll be plumber. If you're an SEO agency, it'll be SEO agency. So your core service and where your business is physically situated. So the address, the suburb that your Google My Business was built around or should be built around. So plumber, Newport. So I'd like you to do that search on your browser, your core service and your local suburb where your business is physically situated. And then I'd like you to have a look at the Google My Business listing that should appear and tell me if you're in those top 3 or 4 listings on Google My Business to attract unknown market, so people that don't currently know your brand, new business to your business by listing on the front page of Google organically. And it is limited, but there's high value in it. So I'd like you to answer that third poll. Are you in those top 3 or 4 listings on the front page of Google when you do a local product search or service search with a local area that you're physically listed in? Awesome. Well, look, I really appreciate that, guys. We've got 2 more people left to answer. I think we can move forward with that. So Darren, can you tell me we'll close that poll off. And Darren, can you tell me what the results are, please?
Certainly. Are you appearing in the Google My Business search results? 40% said yes, and 60% said no. So there's a lot of clients there for you today, Kim.
Thanks, Darren. Look, I think it's great to do polls like this because it helps you understand that you're not alone and that people face the same challenges that you're currently in. So I'll move to the Google My Business optimization. Now, why is Google My Business important? Because on mobile devices, it's absolutely dominant on the front page, and it drives leads to your business. It's in front of people when they're actively searching. The reason I still get excited about digital advertising, especially search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising or Google Ads, is because the behavior of the consumer tells me they're closest to the buying point. Unlike social, where they're kind of, they're scrolling through and they might be a little bit bored or they're just burning a bit of time or they're watching a TV show, they don't usually have an immediate need when on social for a product or service. They haven't made the decision in their mind. They want to act on that need. And what you're hoping to do is build that brand value over time, and that when they do have the need, they're going to think of your brand and they've got a higher trust in your brand with social. But with Google My Business and search engine optimization and pay-per-click, the consumer's behavior is that they've actively gone out of their way to search for a product or service. So that's why I get excited about it, because it usually generates a higher quality of lead. So 40 to 70% of all search online is done on mobile devices, and that's dependent on your business vertical. It's free to set up, but it is limited. So you're only going to appear based on Google's algorithm for searches that have local geos that are relevant to your location, and also a near me, so plumber near me. And that'll be based on the device or the desktop IP address. So it is limited to, and the reason it's limited is it depends on the amount of data. So a friend of mine's a blacksmith, one of my oldest mates in Footscray. There's only 4 or 5 blacksmiths in the whole of Melbourne. He'll probably turn up on Google My Business search for any suburb in the whole of Melbourne. But there aren't many business verticals where there's only 4 or 5 people that do what you do or provide the service or product you provide. So usually when there's a lot more competition, the radius that you will appear for gets tighter and tighter. If you're in a very tough, heavily competitive vertical, you will find that you'll only appear for your local area. Review requests and review responses are sort of 70% in my experience of being able to optimize your Google My Business listing to get in front of your competition. And the other ways that you can optimize is if you're a plumber in Newport, putting rich offers and content on a regular basis. The only thing that's negative about that, or difficult or more time consuming, is that posts and rich content on Google My Business disappear after 7 days. So you need to be listing something new every 7 days. Alt tag your images. So again, plumber Newport, make sure that the images that you're posting have alt tags in the background of the image that say plumber Newport. And saturate your business description with the keywords plumber and Newport. You're getting the idea. You want all your content within the Google My Business and the business descriptions and the images to say plumber Newport. It's an essential foundation of your business, and one of the things that I love about it is it enables people to interact with your business by leaving positive reviews and negative reviews. And a lot of people are scared by that. One of the other things I wanted to say is if you're working from home or you don't want people knocking on your front door, you actually don't need to list your physical business address. So if that's been holding you back from posting a Google My Business listing, then don't let it hold you back. You don't need to have your address public. So Google rewards interactions with your clients. So when your part of your business process for the optimization of Google My Business should be garnering reviews, asking for reviews, and putting a short code, so create a short code in your Google My Business listing and put that in your email. Send your first email, but don't leave it at that. Send a follow-up email a week later, and even maybe another follow-up email a week after that. People aren't not leaving reviews because they don't want to. It's usually because they get distracted, they're really busy, it's not at the top of their priority chain. But what I found when I send the second or third email is I get a higher level of response. And then once you get a response, whether it's good or bad, make sure that you respond to that listing. Google will reward you for interacting with your audience. They want to see that you're actively interested in your audience, posting regular content on a regular basis that's informative and engaging, but also that when you get reviews that you're responding to those reviews. So a good review response is something like, thanks for leaving the review. It's really important to myself and my team. We value your patronage. A bad review response is just as important. The reason is that the more good reviews that you get, you're going to bury bad reviews and they become mitigated by the numbers. Most people expect 1 or 2 bad reviews. But secondly, if somebody sees a bad review and you've come back and said it's really important to us that you had a bad, we're really upset that you've had a bad experience and we'd like to try to remedy that, please contact me directly on these numbers. It shows that you really care about the consumer experience. And then secondly, like my compensation lawyers, they're in a, they've got some very tough competitors. They actually do some pretty dodgy stuff, and they'll leave negative reviews on their Google My Business listings about that business, even though those people haven't been clients. So what my compensation lawyer will do, will check his CRM to make sure that those people have actually been clients at some stage. And if they haven't, he'll actually say, we actually don't have a record of interacting with you. We're sorry that we're unable to find your first and last name, but here's my details. Please feel free to contact me. And what that does straight away is water down the power of that negative review. So the idea is to show that you care, interact with a client, and just try to mitigate the power of a negative review and show people that you're actually interested in that and you want to manage that. So reputation management. So we're going to go to, again, a question time. So I'm hoping that you've listed your questions in the chat box so that I can start to answer those. So Darren, could you just list some of the questions in the chat box that you, and the first and last name, or the first name of the person that's left them for me?
Yeah. So Donna has got a question, is there a way to schedule the Google My Business posts so that you don't have to manually add posts every week? I'm
not, so if you're paying, there are paid services like Hootsuite, and Buffer, and then you get kind of the entry level services of those. And I'm aware that you're able to post to Google My Business. I'd have to check on that. I'm not actually absolutely certain on Google My Business. I know that you can schedule social postings through multiple other channels for social listings, but I'm not certain about Google My Business. So if you can let me have a little bit of time, I'll come back to you and answer that for you.
And the next one is from, I think it's Irina. What is the short code?
Oh, so instead of copying and pasting the URL on your Google My Business listing and trying to put this huge kind of, 50, 60 character URL into an email that looks really ugly, when you go to Google My Business, there's actually a section there where you can generate a short code. That means that it appears really attractively and it's quite small, and you can embed that into your email. You can either highlight the keywords and then link it within your email so that it's hidden behind a keywords, like leave a review here highlighted in blue, or you can actually put it into the email and say click on this link, put the small link in there. So it's just creating a much more attractive or easier way to manage a code to link to your Google My Business listing. And if you send that to people via email and they're logged into their Gmail, then they'll automatically be able to leave a review. They can't leave a review on Google My Business without having a Gmail account.
Next question is from Michael Cotton. Would the fact we have previously searched our business name many times skew the results due to caching?
Yes, that's true. It's very, so I use a tool called iSearchFrom. So you're welcome to have a look at that online. Type in iSearchFrom, and it will give you listings on your browser without any of your cookies or search histories involving. So it'll give you honest results, and you can type in the country, the city, and the search term, and whether it's English or another language, and it will give you a fairly honest, at that point of time in the day, result of the listings on Google.
And one last question here is from Michelle. could you please share that info about scheduling on Google My Business with everyone, perhaps on a follow-up email, which Kim, you and I can organise. But once you've got that information, can we send it out?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's not a problem.
Okay, and there's some more questions now. Would you recommend adding, this is from Donna Fennick, would you recommend adding alt tags to every image on the site? This is a big process, but is the time and effort actually going to translate to better search results?
So this, just for clarity, I think we're talking there about the website, not Google My Business. Alt tags is key to optimizing the site. And it's like page titles and meta tags and H1s and H2s, and I will talk to that a little bit. I haven't mentioned alt tags in there, but it's certainly one of the foundation activities that I'd be doing for SEO. So I think I'll wind that up. Any further questions, I have to take it offline and have meetings with you after this presentation, because I need to move through the next section, if you're okay with that, guys. So, keyword grouping and content mapping. There are three major buckets to SEO of workflow. The first one is site health, so what we call back-end site health. And I can take you through kind of the 58 points that we look at around back-end site health. And what we talk to there around alt tagging and page titles and meta tagging is a little bit of that back-end site health. But more importantly, I think one of the easy things that you can do is get onto GT Metrics with an X on the end of it, and type in your URL and get a page, what we call in the industry a waterfall report. It's a technical report that, and you may not find it easy to read, but it's a technical report that will show you how to improve the page download speed of your site. Because a lot of sites I look to that I do an assessment on have a page download speed of over 5 seconds. Like the one I did a prep for yesterday had 10.9 seconds. That means that you're going to have a very high bounce rate. People are so impatient, they're not going to wait for your entire site to download for more than 3 to 5 seconds. So anything over 3 seconds, you're going to have a 30% or higher bounce rate. Anything over 5 seconds, you're going to have a 50% bounce rate. Higher than that, the more bounce rate. Bounce rate is when somebody lands on a single page and leaves the site. And you'll also notice that your time on site drops and the amount of pages viewed drops as well, because your download speed is so poor. But that's kind of the foundations of SEO. The very first thing I would do, like building a house, foundations, get the site health right. Things like privacy policy, terms and conditions. There's a whole heap of elements around that, and I'm happy again to talk to that off this presentation. But keyword grouping is the next bundle of workflow that is absolutely important. And then the third bundle of workflow, or silo of workflow, is backlinking, and I'm going to talk to that after this. So Google's algorithm is smart enough to understand semantic text or spoken word. And because of that, it's able to group keywords into these silos or buckets of meaning, so similar meaning. To give you an idea of the power of the depth of content and front-end page structure, so URL, and I'll talk to that a little bit so you don't get lost in these terminologies, but the power of actually getting this right is TravelVax is the largest independent practitioner network in Australia. They're owned by Sonic Health Plus. Their sister company is the Travel Doctor. They've been running for 2 years with what we thought was a reputable company that had good process and workflow. We picked up their site, and in the first month we did a deep assessment of that site. And what we found, to our astonishment, was that if you think about it, if a consumer types in Travel Doctor or Travel Clinic with a local geo like Melbourne or Perth or Sydney or Newport, they have an immediate need. Like, they're not typing that in because they're looking for footy scores. They're typing it in because they need a travel doctor in Newport. So if you think about that keyword grouping, that's of high value to TravelVax. When people are taking that action, we want them to appear organically. So that's a really important high value, high action keyword group. The next one is travel vaccinations, and the next one is travel destinations. And they all have, like travel destinations is further away from the buying point, but it supports all the other pages to rank, and it's highly relevant to the consumer's engagement. So what we found is that there was very little or no front-end page structure or depth of content around those keyword groups, astonishingly. So then after the first month's assessment, the next 4 months we rolled out 27 pages of new content that was beautifully structured for SEO. And by the 6th month, we had double the impressions and double the click-through to the site just from keyword mapping, keyword grouping, landing page mapping, creating content and setting it live on the site. So it's one of the largest levers we can pull to get you organic ranking quickly. Then we do the backlinking to support that. But I'm going to take you to a keyword grouping and content mapping report. So this client is Pennington. They're a not-for-profit or a charity in Australia that lobbies government around policy change around drug harm reduction or people that are affected by drug addiction. So you can see on the left-hand side under column A, benefits of harm reduction. These are the keywords here: harm reduction treatment, ICE education, ICE overdose, naloxone, Narcan, needle exchange programs, opioid overdose, pill testing kit. These are the keywords the client gave to us and also what the content on the website was structured around. And with the client's help and the conversation we had, we agreed that was a core set of keywords that were important for the value of Pennington. But then during our research, we found these additional keywords further down the page that had high value, that were totally associated to that core set of keywords. So drug harm reduction, needle exchange near me, overdose duration, pill testing Australia. So you can see that all these keywords are of high value and totally relevant to the client, but just as importantly is the search volume. So you can see the core terms at the top have high search volume, like drug testing has 1,100 searches a month. So what we want to do is then, again, Google's algorithm is smart enough to understand semantic text or spoken language and to pull keywords in similar meaning into a silo. And so through the work that we did, we then came up with keyword group 1, which is harm minimization, harm reduction. And then you can see all the longer tail, what we call longer tail keywords that are stemmed off of the core terms we want to appear for. Harm minimization strategies, harm reduction Victoria, what is harm reduction Australia. So you can see these are highly relevant keywords and they all have similar meaning to harm minimization and harm reduction. And then you go, well, how does that translate to a strategy for the content for my site? So what we're doing here is siloing the keywords to play to Google's algorithm. But then how do we translate that into what it looks like on my site? And this is the front end page structure I was talking to. So keyword group 1, these are the keywords we had in that first silo: harm minimization, harm reduction strategies. Then you can see the slug, and the slug is the term for the extension on the core URL. So you'll have pennington.org.au and then you have /harm-minimization-reduction. So again, you can see that that is targeted to the keywords we want to appear for. In the sea of information on Google, and there's a lot of information, you're saying to Google, you're putting your hand up saying, this is what we stand for. This is what we're relevant to. This is what we want to rank for. And then under that, you can see the page title. So this is the technical elements of the page structure. This is what Google's bots crawl when they go to your site and they crawl your site for relevancy. So you can see the page title is harm minimization reduction, highly relevant to the keyword set we want to appear for, Pennington Institute. The H1, so what is a H1? Heading title 1. So when you're looking at a page, you'll see that the very first paragraph has a title across the top of it. That's the H1. And then the second paragraph will have what we call a H2, and there'll be multiple H2s down the page. And the H1 has more relevancy and is more important to Google's bots than the H2s, but they are all, they all need to be worked together as a whole. So now we're actually suggesting to the copywriter the H2s that should be weaved into the content we're writing, that are going to play to the Google algorithm. You can see they're all relevant. What is harm minimization? Harm minimization strategies. What is harm reduction? And then the meta description, it's not written there, but the meta description has a limited character length and we want to weave those keywords into the meta description. And then the content, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, Google were rewarding content that was 400 to 500 keywords in depth on a page. They shifted that and said, actually, we're going to reward longer content. We're going to reward between 700 and 900 keywords per page. So we're suggesting that the copywriter writes 700 or 800 unique keywords on the page, and that the keywords below here, what we call keyword density, are weaved into the content. So now we're educating the copywriter on how to weave the SEO structure into the body content of the site. So then our copywriter or the internal copywriter for the client, if they've got those resources, or external copywriter, writes the content You know, they can write it to the tone of voice and technical accuracy we're looking for. We then give it to the client, get them to review the copy. The copy comes back, and then after everybody's signed off on it and they're happy with that, we then set the copy live. And that's what I'm talking to around keyword siloing and keyword and landing page mapping. The structure that sits behind a landing page that says to Google in the sea of information, this is what we're on about, this is what we want to be ranked for. So Darren, how's it looking on people's chats? Are there any questions?
So Michelle Carson has asked, can you put non-location images in Google My Business?
Yeah, that's not a problem. You can put any images you want. It's just the alt tagging sitting behind the image. You want to optimize it to the core service or product you offer with the local geo, because Google My Business is about local search.
Okay, and Rowan Burgess has asked, can you show us an example of the slug page title H1, H2 on an actual page?
Yeah, not right now. I'm happy to do that offline because there's a whole heap of stuff going on here, but I can show you stuff that we've already built. You would have experienced it in every site you go to. You've got the core URL and it'll have / homepage, and then you'll have the core URL and they'll have the slug on the end of it, depending on where you navigate within the site. But I'm happy to do that offline.
Great. And then Donna Fennick has asked, doesn't the content parameters depend on the content intended audience? I know for my business, my customers won't read past 300 plus. They want info quickly and don't want to jump through hoops left, right, and center. This may be helpful for NFPs, but for the B2C space, shouldn't content size be determined by average time on site bounce rate customer requests?
It's a really good question, guys, and it's something I get a lot of. So the whole idea of SEO is that we're playing to the Google algorithm. But a lot of my clients say, you know, like LiveHire, they're a competitor to Indeed and Seek in the SaaS space, in the tech space. And all they want is a really clean customer journey, like Apple. They really just want to push people through a customer journey that builds value and gets them to the point where they convert. So that you can marry SEO in a number of ways. One, you can either make the internal link structure in the footer that are supporting pages that are linked in a way that actually supports the main navigation pages, or what we call cornerstone pages. And those cornerstone pages are built, like you said, to appease the customer journey or the customer experience. Another way that we've done it is build those cornerstone pages, and then underneath the top third of the page, we then place all this really long depth of content that nobody ever reads. So SEO can be designed within a site to marry up the needs of the customer and the customer journey in the business, but also to support the organic algorithm. So there are a number of ways to approach that, but it needs to be in a balanced way in consultation with the client, and also with the needs of the consumer totally at the forefront of mind.
That's it with the questions.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Thanks for bearing with me. The next section is backlinking. Backlinking is like being in a networking environment with 200 people in the room. And you've got 10 people in the room that have used your service before and love you and just want to rave about you. They're advocates of what you do. And as they're going throughout the room, they're telling everybody in the room that Kim over there is awesome at SEO. And so that pointing back to your site, so putting content on somebody else's site, and having a text link within that content or an image link in that content that's an inbound link coming back to your site, is leeching authority from that site. And Google's looking at it just like the networking event. I've got all these people that I already have trust with that have built domain authority with Google, and they're starting to point back to this site, and it's leeching authority to this site, and Google's seeing all of these people pointing back that we already trust, saying, oh, now we need to provide more authority to this site because everybody in the community around them is saying that they trust them. So that's how Google's bots are able to see that the backlinking is reaching through to your site. Now, there's easy ways to get aware on Google's radar. And the first way to do that is to do what we call local citations and data aggregators. And I just wanted to talk to an ARES report, which is what the industry uses around domain rating. So domain rating, back in the day, Larry Page is one of the founders of Google, and Google in their wiseness decided to take that rating or the page ranking away, so it's not part of the public domain anymore. It's basically a window into the algorithm of Google's authority algorithm for SEO. So then two other businesses or companies globally, one of them being Ahrefs, created domain rating and domain authority, and it's a benchmark that the industry uses, and they try to replicate what the algorithm is actually searching on people's sites, including backlinking, to give them an authority. Now the domain rating sits between 1 and 100, and for this client, they're only 2 weeks old. That's pretty normal to have a 3.7 domain rating. But if you've been going for a while and you haven't done a lot to your site, you're probably not going to be much higher than this. You might be a 17 or a 20. You really need to get up to those 50s and 70s to be ranking dominantly. And then it actually tells us quite succinctly what the backlinks are and the referring domains. Now the number of referring domains is more important than the number of backlinks. And one of the things that a lot of SEO companies do is create a lot of backlinks, and you go, wow, it looks like intrinsic value. But the truth is, like I looked at one yesterday, they had 9 domains and they had over 150 backlinks from those 9 domains. That looks very spammy. And so now that the amount of backlinks, let alone the quality of the domain they're linking to, could actually be giving them a negative authority to that site, that domain. So look, there are 4 main data aggregators I want you to get onto. There's Foursquare, there's Factual, there's Infogroup, and there's Localese. Those data aggregators are trusted sources in the sea of information around your name, address, and phone number, and the consistency of that data. If you don't have a consistent name, address, and phone number on the internet, it's a red flag to Google. So these guys can actually go into other sources of data and rectify data that is not congruent with your core name, address, and phone number. For instance, if you changed your phone number in the past, or you moved address, and you've got different addresses and different phone numbers on the internet, you need to rectify those so you've got consistency around name, address, and phone number. Now, the easiest way to start a backlinking profile is to get onto Google, type in top 50 free directories in Australia, and they're free directories like Yellow Pages and Hot Frog and True Local. Get on there, type in set up a profile, put in your URL, type in your name, your business name, your address, and your phone number, and do 10 of those a week. After 6 weeks, you're going to have 60 of them. All of a sudden, you've got 60 referring domains to your site, and you're starting to create a backlinking profile for your business. The other thing I wanted to talk to was backlinking really isn't that difficult at the beginning. It is the more backlinking that you want to generate, but if you think with the partnerships that you've already got, that what we call natural backlinking, so friends, family, partnerships, social media, suppliers, contractors, associations, sporting clubs, charities, people down the pub or club that have other businesses. Ask them if you can post content on their blog or on their social media sites that links back to your site. That's what backlinking is. And it's a really natural way of starting to draw domain authority towards your site. So I just wanted to go to question time around backlinking. Does anybody have any questions regarding backlinking that you might like to put into the chat box?
Yeah, there's one question from Donna. How would backlinks data appear in Google Analytics? Would this be under referral traffic?
Backlinking data doesn't. Yes, you can see people. So Google Analytics is a. It's an interesting question. Google measures certain levels of data, like engagement, like time on site, page views, and customer journey. It doesn't give a totally clear view of your backlinking profile, but you will be able to see, for instance, referring domains that are pushing click-throughs to your site, but you won't be able to see all your entire, because there will be domains that don't generate any impressions or click-through for you. So you won't see those within Google Analytics.
So when you're organising backlinking, is it on, so I've got a mate of mine who's my cyber security, is it in the reviews that I've given him in Google Review that the backlinking is, or is it the backlinking on his, or like the review that I've given on his actual website?
So backlinking is a text or image link in content in the World Wide Web that links back to a site. So if in that review you had a hyperlink to, so if you're leaving it on his assets, it's not going to be of high value anyway. The review stage is really about optimizing. The more reviews you have, the more quality reviews you have, the more you interact with those reviews, the more you're controlling or influencing the reputation of your business. That's why it's an important activity, but it's also a 70% of Google My Business ranking algorithm is review and review response on Google My Business. So it's not a high contributor to backlinking at all. They're kind of two very separate focuses. But so leaving reviews is going to influence people around the quality of your reputation and the way you interact with your clients. And it's also going to help optimize Google My Business, but it won't necessarily influence your backlinking profile. Does that help, Rowan?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm just looking at your slide there about other areas you can backlink. It's about putting your URL or hyperlinking within those various things that you might be doing for your client on your clients' social media or website or anything like that. So
yeah,
I think I understand.
Yeah, you want to be putting content on other people's sites, blogs, forums, social media pages that has a link, an image or text link back to your site. And that in itself will leech authority and create that backlinking profile that Google will reward. You have to be careful about the quality though. You don't want to go to cheap backlinking sources that are going to aggregator sites offshore that don't have high quality, because if the domain authority is low, it'll actually give you a spammy profile and reduce the value of your backlinking profile and negatively rank you. But I think if you do a natural backlink into friends, families, partnerships, social media, supply, people that you already have connections with, that's a great way to start.
Thank you.
All right, the next question is from David Gaff. What's the value of directory sites located overseas for local businesses?
You can't really, like those aggregator sites I listed are of high value. You really want to look at local directory sites. You want the name, address, and phone number consistency, even down to the spacing, and you want it listed on local directory sites. .com.au domains are going to give you higher value than offshore domains, and they're harder to garner or harder to acquire. But True White Hat will reach out to 2,000 to 3,000. We reach out to 2,000 to 3,000 businesses a month for our clients. We might get 10 or 20 saying we're vaguely interested. Then we enter in this conversation about where, when, how long for, what content would be mutually beneficial. And out of that, we might come to 2 or 3 people that are willing to post content on the site that's going to be mutually beneficial to their audience and post a backlink. Then we write the content, we send it to the client, they vet it, we both agree that it's ready to go live. Then we ask them to set it live, and we check that the link's live. That's true white hat backlinking optimization. And the value of a .com.au domain will outstrip anything for offshore, like Washington Post or offshore content sites. I hope that answers that question. We're running out of time. I'm really conscious of that, so I might drive into the next section if you're okay, guys. So the third thing was Search Console. I don't want to lose people here, and it can be easy to do, so I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, but I'm just going to share the screen to a live search. This is Google Search Console. Google Search Console is the source of truth for impressions and click-through from organic keywords. So Google Analytics is a repository for data, and the difficulty comes is that Google Analytics measures differently to where the source of truths come from. So Google Adwords, social media, it's notorious that Facebook's measuring of their success does not marry up with Google Analytics because they measure the activities in very different ways. And so Google Search Console, another Google asset, you'd think they'd marry up. Google AdWords, you'd think they'd marry up. They don't. There's always differences. If there's a 10 or 15% difference, that's fine. But the source of truth for organic is actually Google Search Console. What I love about Google Search Console is now I can do a year-on-year comparison. If you're investing into SEO, you want to be able to see what, or even a month-on-month uplift in, and month-on-month is probably pretty short for SEO, but I'll show you through it. So here's Catalyst Computers. When you upload, it's quite easy for you to register your site with Google Search Console. It'll give you up to 16 months of retrospective data. So it doesn't matter if you start today. Go to Google Search Console on Google and set up an account and register your site. So click on Open Report. Now you can see, if I open that up, you'll see that there are actually 4 different versions of Catalyst Computer's domain. There's a www, a non-www, a HTTP, a HTTPS version. It depends on where you've set it up to. So what I'm saying is if you see no data, it's not because there isn't. You may have to check the other versions of your domain. So you can see here, what I've done is it's web traffic. I can see that in the last 3 months, this is the traffic that has been generated. And I can see the keywords that have generated that traffic, and I can change the amount of keywords I'm looking at. And I can see the impressions in purple, and I can see the clicks that were generated and the keywords that generated that from organic. Now, what I'm really interested in is, hold on, I want to know what higher ranking is generated for Catalyst Computers in the last 12 months. So I go to compare, not filter, and I click last 3 months year on year. And you can see here that the same period in the last 3 months this year to the same date period in 2019. And we can see there are 109,000 impressions in 2019, and 2020 in the same period we've got 233,000 impressions, and that's considering COVID, by the way, so that's a pretty good result. And then in 2019, the 109,000 impressions generated 384 clicks. And in 2020, we generated 7,960 clicks. And the average cost per click in Adwords, so this is a way to monetize the SEO value, the average cost per click for this client in Adwords is $20. So if I look at the increase there of around 7,500 additional clicks, we're looking at about $80,000 worth of equivalent pay-per-click advertising to generate the same amount of traffic to this site over 3 months in 2020. So it's a way of monetizing it. It's rough, but it is a way of getting, am I getting good value? And then the client might say to me, hold on, Kim, I reckon I was really dominant for my brand and you shouldn't be getting any, because organic results on Google Search Console include brand. So the client might say to me, like Kumon's, one of my clients might say, hey, we were dominant in the space already. You shouldn't be really hanging your hat on my brand. So then we can go to query, and we can say keywords not containing Kumon. And this is really the intrinsic value of SEO, because these are non-branded keywords. So now, I just put in Kumon. That's not going to work because it's Catalyst. Hold on, guys. So now we can see that their brand is removed from the keywords, and we can see that there are 101 searches the same time last year to 99 clicks without brand, and 178,000 impressions to 4,190 clicks without brand in 2020. So that's the way to remove branded and non-branded search volume, and to do a 3-month this year to 3-month last year comparison. Now, if you're a really new client, they might go, I want to see what you've done in a month, when I'd go, well, hold on, we said we'd need 6 to 12 months because it's SEO, but let's have a look at it anyway. So I might go in here and go compare. Let's look at the last 20, that's year over year. Look at the last 28 days to the previous period. And again, there are fluctuations in search behavior that are out of our control, like federal elections, COVID, but you can see here that last 28 days to the previous 28 days, 53,300 to 60,300, 1,120 clicks to 1,860 clicks. And again, it's kind of, it's a very short period of data, so it's not really fair. You could have a negative in there, and it may be influenced by consumer behavior that we can't do anything about. But at least there's total transparency. And the whole idea is that you find a partner that's willing to have these conversations with you and hold your hand. So again, question time. If you've got any questions, please list them, and I'll attempt to answer them as succinctly as I can.
There's a question from Donna. So does the average position end goal mean that you want to get as close to the top, i.e. number 1, as possible?
Yeah, look, the higher up you are on page 1, the more click you attract. So, the bottom of page 1, you're attracting about 12% of click, of search volume, so impressions. The top of page 1, we call position 1 and 2 about 30% of all impression, of all available search volume will attract a click. So you're going to get That's why I love SEO. It takes time to get there. It's not like AdWords where it's immediate. AdWords should pay for itself in the first month, if not the second and third month. And by the fourth month, and you've optimized, you can say that's what I'm going to hang my hat on for cost per lead and leads generated. But it's very limited in that it never gets any cheaper, and it just gets more and more competitive. And there's only a certain amount of leads you can generate at it. Whereas SEO will eclipse AdWords over a period of time because people have a higher trust factor, and the higher that you rank and the more keywords you rank for, the more that you'll generate leads from it. And that's why we track everything to phone call, email, contact us form, shopping cart, submit, so people can actually understand what their cost per lead from organic is and from whatever channels we're running for them. Awesome. Guys, we're getting to the end. I just wanted to leave a little quote. The greatest glory in living lies not in ever failing, but in rising every time we fall, Nelson Mandela. And quickly, I promised everybody that attended today they could have access to 6 free apps. Because I don't have access to the email list, it'd be awesome if you could leave your first and last name and email in the chat box, and I can save that, and then I can set you up on the platform and send it to you. There's an advertising intelligence app. If you join your social media assets and your Google Analytics into it, you'll have a centralized place for ad reporting and analysis. There's customer voice, so that's reaching out to people. You can do all of these apps are what we call express apps. They're the very kind of, it's product-led sale, to be really honest and upfront with you. It's limited functionality. The next level is pro, so you're paying $40, $50 a month for each app, and you can do multiple levels of that, a bit like Hootsuite or Buffer. And then there's, look, I love it, I want more of it, but I don't have enough time. And we can manage that for you. So these are the entry levels. But customer voice, you can reach out to people and ask them for reviews. Once you garner those reviews, you can get them left on Google My Business or Facebook. Website Express is a free CMS. Build your first site on there. And Listing Builder is what we talked about, those data aggregators. You can actually put all your details in there, and it will go back and correct and notify you of where all your listings are currently inaccurate, so you can go and correct them. Reputation Manager is monitor and manage your online reputation. So again, it's going to put like a Google alert out there around, but more sophisticated around your brand, and it's going to alert you whenever somebody has a mention or a content or a review around your business, so you can then manage that and interact with it. And social marketing, where we can join, like Hootsuite or Buffer, all of your social marketing assets, so that you've got one place to automate those sends out of and to be able to manage them. Guys, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a great session. I hope I've added a lot of value to you, and I'm totally open to having one-on-one conversations with you. Please reach out to me and let me know if you're interested. Thanks for your time.